Our final topic for this module is automation and the impact this has on the work which humans engage in. For most of human history, our primary mode of working was some kind of physical labor, whether this was hunting or gathering, farming or cloth making. The vast majority of our work was us physically working with our hands and muscles. But throughout much of the 19th and 20th centuries, this story changed as we began to create machines which acted like mechanical muscles, doing much of our physical labor for us. As a result, we began to switch over to mental labor, and we developed educational institutions to reflect this change. We started training people in things like reading, writing, and arithmetic, because these were the skills which society found to be valuable in humans, and they had changed as our technology has changed. But our technology is changing once again. With the advent of computers, and more recently, computers which have been able to change their behavior by being shown examples. This is known as machine learning. We've begun to create machines which behave like mechanical brains. Much of the mental work which dominated the late 20th century is in the process of being automated by computers. As a result, the work which we now value as a society is changing over to more emotional labor. Things like being able to understand and communicate with people, to empathize with them and understand their true needs. I think that COVID-19 has really exemplified this change and simultaneously shown us the promise and potential of technology and things like AI, while also highlighting its shortcomings. Much of the world was able to move online, and we found that a lot of our work was able to be done remotely. But a lot of our work was not able to be done remotely either. And in addition, we missed the social interaction, which is critical for healthy and happy functioning. And that emotional and social connection is something which machines and computers have been totally unable to replace. What comes to mind to me is things like nurses working on the front lines of COVID. We haven't been able to replace them with machines because their job includes more than just going around and checking off medical checklists. They actually have to care for people. And that empathetic process is something which is not easily replaced by a machine. So what types of works exactly are being replaced? I think it's less helpful here to think of job titles, and it's more helpful to think in terms of actual tasks being performed. So the answer here is that work which is being replaced is anything which involves taking a set of defined rules, which can then be repetitively applied to solve a problem or to make a decision. So things like working with data or finances, things like budgets and spreadsheets. If you're moving data from one program to another, or if you're driving a car on a highway, if you're someone that looks at medical data like x-rays and you're trying to make a diagnosis, or if you're somebody making somebody a coffee or a burger. These are all examples of tasks which are highly repetitive and rule-based and are at high risk of being automated. And just trying to hustle more, working longer and harder, it isn't going to help you if you're still doing the types of tasks which can be automated. You cannot outwork a machine. They will work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never get burned out. They won't take vacations. They don't file HR complaints, and they don't call in sick. You cannot beat a machine at these types of things. In addition, you don't need to automate 100% of a job in order to start experiencing automation-related job loss. The rise of self-checkouts in grocery stores, I think, is an excellent example. In the past, you may have had 10 cashiers at 10 different tills. But now, you have one cashier overseeing 10 machines. Even though the machines can't do everything, and occasionally they still need a human to step in and help, they can do just enough that you can afford to employ less humans for that job. So there's this misconception here about how work gets replaced by a machine. You aren't going to walk into work one day and see a robot sitting in your chair while your boss tells you you've been just fired. It's more like your company might not fire the accountant who's in charge of payroll, but when that person decides to retire soon, they probably won't bother advertising the position for somebody else. They'll just pay for some software that does most of the work, and any bits of the leftover tasks can go to one of the junior employees. Over time, these small losses can add up to a lot of jobs. So, increasingly, machines are going to rule in the domain of problem solving. It's going to be the human's job in this picture to be the one who is a problem finder and a problem definer. It's kind of like the computer will be in charge of actually taking the pieces of a puzzle and arranging them into their final position. But you're still going to need a human in charge of asking, why does solving this exact puzzle actually fix the underlying problem? How do we know that this is the right problem to solve? What if there are pieces missing? These are the types of things which computers are going to struggle to figure out on their own. So this type of work is going to stay uniquely human for a while. And it's going to involve things like empathy, being able to understand and anticipate the needs of others, or being able to work and lead diverse teams of people. It'll require abstract computational thinking, where you're able to understand a problem well enough that you can decompose it and translate it into pieces that actually can be understood by a computer. It's also going to need art. Art is this really unique process of being able to take a messy, undefined thing like an emotion and translate it into a different medium. It can take an issue or perspective and represent it in a new way that might cause us to see the underlying problem in a new light. Now, none of this is to say that things like basic proficiencies like reading or math are unimportant. It's more that we have to teach these things while keeping in mind that computers are going to be rulers in the domain of repeated application of a memorized set of instructions or facts. And unfortunately, the very things that computers are going to be good at are the exact things that educational institutions so highly prioritized throughout the 20th century. So, education is inherently future-looking, and we have to keep the end in mind. Our future is looking like it's going to have a lot of change. In this course, we've been discussing a lot of technological change specifically, but our climate is changing as well. Both of these things are then going to create a lot of societal change, and we need to make sure that students are ready for this future.